Hey Emma,
Yes, Malin.
what's Will Wright's favorite video game theme song?
I don't know.
Simple and Clean. Hello, and welcome to Talk This,
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
because he's the creator of The Sims.
Oh.
Not just like a random dude.
Okay.
So it's a Sims joke.
With some Kingdom Hearts thrown in, because what would this podcast be if we didn't mention Kingdom Hearts every episode, right?
Look, my original joke was about the band Simple Plan, but I decided it should be video game themed because this is a video game podcast.
I see.
So, just in case you were wondering, Emma, and listeners, thanks for tuning in to Talk This, everybody's favorite video game podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Madelyn,
I'm your other host, Emma.
and we're excited to have you with us. I think it's going to be a great main quest episode today. What do you call
Heck yeah.
main plot? Like, what do you call that? We call side quests.
Story missions?
It's going to be a great story mission episode today. Although we tell many more stories, I feel like, in our side quests.
Yes, we do.
So maybe that's a philosophical musing on games, or maybe it's just a straightforward comment about our programming here at Talk This. Who knows?
Plot progression.
Yes, as we progress our long-running plot here at Talk This. When last we left our heroes, they were talking about two games that we've already forgotten.
Yeah. We talk about so many games, guys. Come on.
It's true. But this week, we remember exactly what we're going to be talking about, which is important because they're two pretty cool games. I'm pretty psyched for this episode. I think it's going to be a fun discussion.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, as you might have guessed from my opening joke, The Sims. Maybe you've heard of it. Little known indie. And we're talking about actual, not like, it's gotten like good press and everything, but actual little known indie relative to The Sims anyway, Celeste.
Yes.
Which I had a very hard time remembering the name of this afternoon. I
sent it to you, though.
I know that, but I was being too lazy to look up the title that you had sent to me because I thought it would come back to me. And I was like, I know it's a woman's name that starts with a C.
Uh-huh.
But I really thought it was like a CH for some reason. I was like, Charlotte?
Celeste.
No. Yeah, I was like, platforming game, and I put in the C into Google, hoping that it would like prompt it for me, and it didn't.
Gosh
so
darn
I did
it,
have
Google.
to go back and find it. But I did, and the name of the game is Celeste. But first, we're going to talk about our old game, or, our perennial favorite game, our golden game. I hate to call them old. They're not really that old, right?
Yeah.
The Sims. So, I think if you've ever heard of video games, or, like, frankly, a computer, you've probably, heard of The Sims.
Yes.
It's a long-running video game series, started by, originally developed by Will Wright, but really, company-wise, developed by Maxis and EA, and briefly, The Sims Studio, before it was kind of reabsorbed, which I thought was funny that they had their own studio just for The Sims. It was their first one that was released in the year 2000. So we are coming up on the 20th anniversary of The Sims.
Wow, maybe they'll release The Sims 5 for that.
That would seem like a good marketing strategy to me.
Because they're on 4 now, right?
Yes. So currently we are on The Sims 4, although one of the things I want to talk about The Sims is their disposition towards expansion packs. Namely that, yes, there's The Sims 4, which was released, I think, in 2013, but they are still releasing expansion packs for it. I'm reasonably certain here we are almost 6 years later.
Yes, the DLC before we knew what DLC was.
And that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. So The Sims, I feel like, needs almost no introduction, but I'll introduce it anyway. It's a game wherein you sort of control to an extent which you yourself determine the lives of these simulated, hence the Sims, people. And depending on the version you're playing and how many expansion packs you have, there's all sorts of stuff you can do with your people. But it's based on sort of this, like, bizarro version of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, basically. Sort of, like, part of the inspiration for the game. And you have to make sure, as this, like, benevolent or malevolent, depending on your playstyle, I guess, like, God, omniscient God, that your Sims are, you know, fulfilling their needs. That they're, you know, getting the food and shelter they need. That they're getting educated. That they're fulfilling their desires that they come with. You gotta make sure that these people take care of themselves. And boy, sometimes do they make it hard.
Yes. Yeah, so, I don't know if this applies for you, but I don't think I ever got into playing The Sims. I remember playing it exactly once for exactly one day, and then the Grim Reaper showed up, and I walked away from it. Which is weird, right? Because I had no qualms about, like, cold-heartedly massacring people in Zoo Tycoon. But when it came to, like, the Grim Reaper showing up to take my people away, that was not happening for me. I think it's my predisposition of, like, I'm okay with the violence, but bring any horror into it and I'm out of there, right?
To be fair, some of the people in Zoo Tycoon, they deserved it.
Yeah,
people who are like, there's not enough trash cans as they rock through Trash City.
Yes.
People who litter right next to a trash can, those people deserve to be eaten by lions or, like, T-Rexes.
They've got to learn somehow, right?
They've gotta get them out of the gene pool. Yeah, I had a similar experience with Sims. I definitely played it more than once. But there are people that I know who were very into The Sims as kids and teenagers, and we were not that way. There were other kind of controlling people-y type games that were a little more combat-focused, usually. Then I think we're sort of more our speed in the Talk This, in those pre-Talk This days, but the Talk This household. And yeah, I was similarly freaked out by the Grim Reaper. Like, I would quit the game when the Grim Reaper showed out because it was scary. I don't know. It was too scary. I was, you know, whatever. When was I playing this? Sometime between, like, 7 and 10, probably. Yeah. I don't think I really played it too much past that. And yeah, it was scary. I don't have that much other recollection of the actual gameplay elements, except that there was a cheat where you would enter in Rosebud, followed by, like, semicolons, and it would give you money for each semicolon.
Yeah, I remember that now, too. They had, like, the little cheat code section thing where you could type stuff up.
And I imagine that is a reference to Citizen Kane, although... why? I guess Citizen Kane's like a rich dude in the movie, right? So I was like, why would that lead you to have money? But like,
all I know about Citizen Kane is Rosebud and nothing else.
You know what Rosebud is?
It's a spoiler.
I thought you were just gonna say it, and I was like, Emma, no.
I don't care about spoilers, but somebody out there does. I mean, whatever. It's a 60-year-old movie, or however old it is. I don't know when it came out. But, yeah. You shouldn't be upset about that by now, but I still won't say it, because I respect you. I'm just saying, loosen up a little, man.
Dang. Somebody out there just got roasted.
Yeah, but that's literally the only thing I know about Citizen Kane. I always kind of assume Citizen Kane and Saving Private Ryan are the same movie for some reason. Even though I know they're not intellectually.
Alright, let's move on before everyone turns off the show just right there. So yeah, we don't really have too much kind of in-person experience about playing The Sims. Although I know I speak for both of us when we say we'd love to hear from you listeners about, like, your Sims experiences. Were you similarly freaked out by the Grim Reaper? Were you a person that just spent hours and hours and hours crafting your perfect Sim family? Did you make the Sims look like you? I don't know. I don't love that, like, crafting your real family in The Sims.
Yeah. It's just so you can torture them. That's just a little, be concerned about that child.
Maybe you're not trying to torture them. Maybe you're trying to help them find fulfillment.
Still be a little worried for that child.
I did read an article a few months ago, long before I even realized The Sims was in the hat, about a woman who, like, she plays The Sims and she would, like, make Sim versions of herself and, like, her current boyfriends.
Mm-hmm.
And she had, like, one long-term partner that, like, she eventually broke up with, but she, like, didn't want to delete the Sim family.
Yeah.
So, I mean, eventually she went back and kind of, like, found closure a little bit through that Sim save file. Which I was just like, this is a little, like, I'm all for video games, you know, having meaning and people taking good real world lessons and feelings from video games and them being art, and I can go on and on and on of things that I feel like are things video games can do that maybe some people don't give them credit for. But man, that was a little much even for me.
Yeah, nah, that's a little something. Yeah, I don't know. Just generally. I mean, I'm sure I must have done it more when I was younger, but I don't feel like whenever I have character customization, I never try to make the character look like me now that I'm the age that I am. You know?
Yeah, it would be very, very odd.
But I mean, even in like less personal games, like Fire Emblem, I never try to make the avatar character look like me, because they can look so much cooler, right?
I do in some games. My Stardew Valley character looks like me.
Yeah, I guess that's a little. I don't know.
When it's like
I guess I made my Escapist 2 character kind of look like me, except with a bandana.
It just depends on the game. If it's a game where I do sort of want to self-insert a little bit, then I will. Otherwise, I don't. Yeah, I did not make my, what game did I start? My Skyrim character. No, it wasn't Skyrim. Is that what I'm thinking of?
That's all I could assume that you're thinking of.
Yeah, it's not Skyrim, though. It's not Assassin's Creed. It's the other one that I played once.
The other one.
And I haven't gotten back to.
Breath of the Wild.
Do you know what I'm talking about? My dark elf.
That's Skyrim.
That's Skyrim? Okay.
Oh my god.
So it is Skyrim. I'm just dumb.
Oh my god.
Another, like, weird Sims... So, like, I want to talk about all of the expansion packs and stuff, right? And how, like, I just think that's a weird thing and a weird relic of a different time. Or not. But first of all, I want to talk about a weird Sims thing that I also read about a few months ago called the 100 Baby Challenge.
What?
Yeah. So the 100 Baby Challenge, people come up with all sorts of, like, different ways to play The Sims, right? Because if you're a Sims addict, you get bored of just sort of, like, trying to manage your life and make these people, you know, nice and normal, right? So you have to come up with, like weird challenges for yourself. So basically, the goal is to give birth to 100 children in as few generations as possible.
Jeez.
So each generation, you designate a Sim as the matriarch, and she, like, needs to attract men constantly so as to be pregnant as much as possible before her child-rearing years run out.
I mean, I guess, like, have your fun, but also that's a little creepy.
Whoa, did you know that as of the early June 2016 patch, Sims are no longer restricted to binary genders?
That's great.
Go Sims.
I mean, if you're a simulation game, that you got to be one of the forefronts of that, right? Because otherwise, what's the point of your game?
No, totally.
Especially when they can already be like vampires or whatever. So
That's true, yeah. But yeah, I read an article about this. I really need to, like, get back to actually sharing articles on our social media, so maybe these two will actually really kick me off to do that this time, because they're great articles. about someone who tried to do this 100 baby challenge, and it's really hard because you've got this just like mother sim trying to care for like 6 children, and like she's pregnant, and like you just have to be like constantly getting her out to like woo men. And
oh my gosh.
it's just like really bad.
It's a little weird, not gonna lie. Just a little weird.
Gotta make sure she's making woohoo, as much as you can.
Jeez.
What?
Yeah, just the things people come up with sometimes astound me.
I know, it's just like, and there's a whole rules guide. I was just looking at it to read. There's like a giant rules guide for this game. This like version of this game.
Oh my gosh. People are so weird.
There's gotta be a video of someone trying it. I gotta find that. That's just gonna be disturbing on many levels.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Other things I wanted, speaking of sort of the non-binary gender Sims, another kind of like, so fun facts about the development of the Sims that maybe you did or did not know. So at first, Will Wright had a really hard time getting people to like buy into this game, right? It tested really poorly with focus groups at first, and so it was really hard to get it off the ground. But EA Maxis, or I guess maybe it was just, no, I think Maxis has always been owned by EA. I don't know. I have a hard time with game companies, so roll with me here. He had also developed SimCity, and SimCity was doing really well. So they kind of like gave him the benefit of the doubt and let it go. And good thing, because they were expecting it to sell like 150,000 copies. And instead, it sold like 11.5 million copies.
That is pretty good.
It's like the best-selling... I haven't actually checked this, but I read that it is the best-selling PC game of all time.
I wouldn't find that shocking.
Me either. So I thought that was interesting, that, like, this seems like kind of a no-brainer type game. Like, a people simulator? I don't know. It just seems like now that The Sims has been around for almost 20 years, it's like, duh. Now we have, like, friggin', like, Dream Daddy, right? Like,
Dream Daddy is much different than The Sims. Just gonna put that out there.
I know that, but what I'm trying to say is we have such a wide variety of, like, simulator-type games.
You didn't even go all the way to I don't know how to actually say How to Full Boyfriend, where you date pigeons.
No. I didn't.
You picked Dream Daddy, which isn't even that crazy when you can date pigeons in a game, Madelyn. Come on now.
You're right. I made a mistake. So it's weird now to think of this being a game that people were not totally sold on, because now it's like, well, duh, who hasn't played The Sims?
Yeah,
and
people love messing
sort of
with
like
virtual people's lives. Just love it.
We
love chaos.
For real. But what I wanted, what the gender binary was making me think of, is that apparently when they were showing it to like some critics or something at some kind of like game conference at some point in the not so early development before it was released, they were like showing like a Sims wedding, and at the wedding 2 of the female attendants like fell in love and kissed in like 1999.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so immediately after that they were like, which is not so good, but they were like, better like make sure the player can set sexual orientation. Which now look how far the Sims have come. Now you can have gender non-binary Sims.
Yeah.
So the Sims have always been gay, but now they're allowed to be whatever they want to be.
I mean, honestly, that like the fact could you actually set the sexual orientation from the first version of The Sims?
I don't actually know. I don't know how that actually ended up being implemented.
'Cause like, I mean, we shouldn't give, companies should do this. They should whatever, but like for 1999, for a game that they weren't even sure was really gonna do very well and that was testing poorly with focus groups, it would have been a very daring move to also include like a sexual orientation picker. Slider.
Yeah,
whatever.
I'll have to go back and look at it and like maybe post about it. But it seems like that happening was like just a programming oversight at first, and then they were like, uh-oh,
yeah, no, I'm sure.
Yeah, we need to like define this somehow. Anyway, other fun things to know about The Sims. Did you know that there was a massive whatever, I can never remember what MMO really
Massively multiplayer online game.
Why is it massively?
Because it's massive.
Why is it not just massive?
Because it's an adjective, Malin. It's describing an adverb, excuse me. It's describing an adjective, so it has to be an adverb form.
Oh, you're right.
It's not a massive game, it's a massively multiplayer
You're right,
game.
It's not a massive multiplayer. That was embarrassing for me. Gosh,
Malin. What do your two T's think of you?
I don't know. I don't usually have to go through adverbs with them. Anyway, there was a massively multiplayer online version of The Sims for a couple of years. And it was bad.
Yeah, that sounds awful. Not gonna lie.
What it sounds like is Second Life, but it wasn't as good.
Yeah.
So that failed pretty fast. But really, what there is about The Sims is a million, billion, bajillion expansion packs.
Yeah. It's true.
It's just
there are a million, bajillion, bagillion.
It's just crazy to think of, like, buying a CD now, anyway, because of course we did it. We did it a lot. We had plenty of expansion packs for games that we played, right?
Yeah.
We had the Age of Mythology one, had Civilization ones. I really think we got a Sims game that came with some of the expansion packs.
Yeah, I think so too.
We had Zoo Tycoon with expansion packs. Like, we had these games that where we must have bought, at least for some of them, separate discs.
Yeah. No, I remember the separate discs for Zoo Tycoon.
Which is crazy.
Were those expansion packs, or were those just, like, different versions?
No, they were expansion packs. Which is crazy to think about now.
I mean, you know, they basically do the same thing now, except we don't have to insert a new disc to do it.
Were people as whiny about expansion packs, though, as they are about DLC now?
You know, I don't know.
It feels like they can't be, because people are incredibly whiny about DLC now.
Well, back when they had expansion packs, we didn't have Twitter, so people weren't as whiny.
That's
right?
fair.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah. Speaking of DLC, a little off topic here. Did you hear about Rockstar and what he said about their work week?
Yeah.
Yikes.
He walked it back, apparently.
Yeah, he did, but like...
He was just, like, incredibly unaware of how that would sound in the current climate, apparently. Like, you know, whatever. If it's not hurting anybody to not put in more hours and the senior staff wants to work however long the last week of development, fine. It's not my prerogative to tell people how to live their lives, right? It's the issue is when the company is mandating it, or the company is not mandating it, but, like, the door is over there, right?
I'm just saying, if those people working at Rockstar were Sims, some of their needs are not being met.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, crunch is, pretty awful. As somebody who's interested in both the games industry and the anime industry, like, that's all anybody ever talks about anymore, for good reason. But, yeah. It's pretty bad.
Anyway, this is a tangent, and we can maybe talk about it more on our next side quest, as
yeah.
I'm sure it will continue to be in the news.
Yeah.
But, all this to say, let's stop whining about DLC so much, folks.
Yeah.
Like, if it means that these people get to, like, go home to their little Sim families and eat their Sim food, and their hierarchy of needs is a little better met, and they aren't just, like, crying on the ground because they're too tired to get food or go to bed, as Sims sometimes are,
yes.
That's maybe a good thing.
Let's stop complaining about delays so much, too. How about that? You want a crappy product, or do you want to kill the people making that product? Then you can complain about delays. If you don't want either of those things, then you don't get to complain. Life lessons with Talk This.
This has been a PSA. No, it's just, I don't know. It's weird to think of all those, like, CDs that you didn't use again, right? You didn't put the expansion pack in. You just, like, let it sit.
Yeah.
It's also weird to think about games where you had to have 2 discs, but that's a whole other...
Yeah.
Just a whole other can of worms.
It's weird to think about discs.
A little bit.
That's what we'll be saying in about 5 years. Man, discs. What an ancient technology.
Look, children. The compact disc.
Wow, Grandma!
One last thing about The Sims, I think, before we move on, is it's interesting to me the way that they program them as, like, The Sims can be autonomous. There are some actions that they can't do without you telling them, like paying the bills and stuff, which, like, wow, relatable.
Yeah.
But they're mostly autonomous, but they, like, program them to not always make the best decisions in caring for themselves.
Yeah.
Like people.
Yeah, just like people.
Which is funny, and also just a low-key roast of the millions and millions and millions of people who have played The Sims.
Yes.
Not even low-key. High-key.
High-key roast.
Anyway. And how weird is Simlish? Okay, that's all. Moving on.
Anybody fluent in Simlish?
You can't be fluent in it because it is gibberish. It is not a real made-up language with, like,
Darn
rules.
it.
It is gibberish.
But what if it is?
It's not, though. There's a whole Wikipedia article specifically about Simlish.
Oh, darn.
And they discovered, like, they were originally, fun fact, they were exploring using Navajo.
Ah.
But they found that it was easier for people to feel like they weren't hearing repeated sounds. Like, he said, like, I could have put 5 CDs worth of sounds on this game, but people would still have started to hear repeats, right? Because theoretically it's got quote-unquote unlimited replay value, The Sims. Whatever that means.
Yeah.
But they found with nonsense syllables that didn't resemble any particular language that, like, people were much less able to recognize things being repeated.
That makes sense.
So they just had 2 actors come into the studio for the first one and just, like, improv nonsense in sort of different...
Sounds fun.
I know, right? And just sort of different tones and different, like, inflections.
What a great job.
Like, what a weird job.
And if they were video game voice actors, they were probably told nothing before they came into the studio, right?
That's probably for the best. Who would take that job?
That's true. The one job where it's probably for the best.
Anyway, it's probably now's as good a time as ever to dash on over to our new game, Celeste.
So Celeste is a 2018 game from Matt Makes Games, which is like basically like 6 people worked on it altogether.
And
like
why does Matt get top billing?
I don't know, because he's also made other games. It's from the same. They also made a game called Towerfall, which I think is also pretty like sort of decently known, at least among like indie games.
It's getting
here.
a Switch port, so
Towerfall?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Celeste is already on the Switch in addition to everything else, except your phone. But any other game system you can play Celeste on. Any other recent game system. Current gen game system.
You're telling me I can't get out my Sega Genesis and play it?
No, you cannot get out your Sega Genesis and play it. But Celeste follows the journey of Madelyn, who you can name whatever you want, but her default name is Madelyn, as she attempts to climb Celeste Mountain. The reasons she's doing so are kind of unclear, but she wants to climb it, and the way she climbs it is by seriously difficult platforming puzzles.
So Emma is actually playing this game? Have you finished it yet, or no?
I have not finished it yet.
Do you know how it ends?
Not specifically.
Okay.
No.
How far? I don't want to like spoil the game for you because I did read how it ends. Wow, the power that I feel like I hold right now.
Well, I don't think we should spoil the game for anyone. I know that you have to, like, fulfill certain conditions to unlock the last chapter, which I think is dumb. I always think that's dumb. But whatever. Putting that aside. I'm on, like, chapter 5, I think.
So,
of 8.
Slight spoilers ahead, I guess, for the first half of the game. So, talk to me about your playing experience so far, how you're liking the plot, how you're liking the game. I watched you play a little bit when we were home a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. It's real stressful. But in a kind of good way. Like, I was expecting I would just get frustrated with it, but that's not really my experience. Like, I always feel like I can do it, right? I'm never like, this is just impossible. It's just, like, a matter of getting the timing right. I'm not particularly good at it. I die a lot. I don't get very many strawberries, which are, like, little collectibles you can pick up as you go through. But it's fun because it feels like you can almost always see what you need to do, which is nice.
Yeah, what struck me as nice is that it's only one screen at a time that you have to get through.
Yeah.
Something that I really dislike in games, and this happens to some extent to me watching you play Celeste, but on a much smaller scale, is I don't like it when I've figured out a puzzle, but, like, I have to keep doing the stuff I've already figured out. So I don't appreciate, like, for example, not that I play very much Super Mario, right? But, like, if you're playing kind of the classic Super Mario, right? I wouldn't appreciate a level where, like, I know how to get through 3/4 of it, and just the last quarter is really hard, and I keep having to do that first 3/4 over and over and over again.
Yeah. There is a bit of that with Celeste. Like, generally a screen is just the size of your screen, but at least in each of the chapters, well, almost all the chapters I've had so far, there's also been sort of a time pressure part where something is chasing you, and you have to avoid what's chasing you while also platforming. And sometimes the screens on that are a little bit either longer or deeper, in that they take up more than just your screen. Like, you move through it a little bit. But, like, even as I was playing it, I was never, like, sick of doing the same things over again. I don't know. Just because it goes so fast, I feel like. Like, you move so fast in Celeste that even as you're doing the same thing over again, there's attention to it. It's not just, like, you're bored. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got that same, I mean, in a very, very different way, so don't laugh at me for making this comparison, but in the same way as with Fortnite, it's very easy to just be like, I'm going to play one more, and I'm going to do better next time. With Celeste, I feel like it's, I can try again, I can try one more time, or I can make it through one more screen.
Yeah, because the when you die and then come back, that's also super snappy, which I feel like super helps. Right, like, if the death animation was any longer, it would be insufferable, probably. But it's just like, you die, you're back, you die, you're back, you die, you're back. So it's really easy to sort of, like, keep trying, because there's no delay there or time to think about it, right? But anyway, for just some minor spoilers, like, as you continue to climb the mountain, it becomes clear that Madelyn sort of suffers from some kind of anxiety, and she has panic attacks, and these anxieties and pressures have sort of manifested themselves into their own being on this mountain. That serves as a point of conflict for a lot of things. And she meets a bunch of people, like a eccentric old woman, a ghost who's managing a hotel, and also one more person named Theo who is also climbing the mountain in order to share cool photos with his Instagram followers. That's not actually Instagram in the thing. I can't remember what it's called. But he's
relatable.
He's from Seattle. He feels like he's from Seattle.
Zing at the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. He's just like, he's got like a beard, flannel, You know, he's that kind of person. Takes photos of old ruins. He's trying to get 1,000 followers. He doesn't know what to say when Madeleine's like, I don't have a smartphone. That sort of person. In a charming way. So you meet up with these recurring characters, along with, like, Madeline, I think is the fan name for her. And sort of have to deal with that struggle of feeling anxious.
I can relate to, like, I don't know, I realize the Madeline thing is, like, weird, but you remember in high school when we were theater critics, we all were, like, when we had Madelyn and Fadelyn?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. Like, it could be worse. They could have much worse nicknames.
That's true. But if Fadeline was not an alternate persona who chased you by following your every move.
You know, sometimes she was.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I wanted to play it, but I was like, oh man, it'll be too hard and I'll get frustrated. But I haven't had that feeling at all, which is nice.
This is a game where I feel like I would really enjoy watching a speedrun.
Yeah, it's pretty much made for speedruns. It even has you can turn on a speedrunning clock in the game.
Yeah, well, it's made for some kind of a device like a Pico 8, which Wikipedia couldn't tell me very much about, but kept being described as a fantasy video game console that was designed for speedrunning.
Oh, there is a hidden console within the game that you can play like a mini version of Celeste on.
Yeah, so that's like their prototype version.
Ah.
Yeah, because fun fact about Celeste, they originally made it at a 4-day game jam.
That makes sense, actually.
And then they expanded it.
Game jams are kind of like 24-hour plays.
Yeah, no, I sort of know what a game jam is.
Yeah, but like in concept, right?
Yeah.
So you make something workable, and then ideally you like can build off that a little bit, maybe afterwards.
I don't think people really do that with the 24-hour plays. I certainly haven't with mine. Mm-hmm. Not that anyone listening to this knows what that is, but look it up.
Yeah, some of the people I worked at did it with. They went to GDC and they took a train there and they did the train jam, which was a game jam on a train.
Oh, I've heard of one that does that with plays too, that you go to the top of the A line and you get on the A train and you ride it all the way to the end and you just have to write a play.
Wow. Yeah, no, this was a little longer because it was like, a train from like New York to San Francisco, I think. But
that's crazy though.
Yeah.
You have to have pretty good internet on that train.
Yeah. Well, I guess you don't really need internet too much to make games, unless you're making an online game.
I guess. But don't you need to, like, look up how to code things?
Maybe. I don't know.
Just, like, I've forgotten how to code, like, hand emotes. Like, quick. To Google.
Who knows?
So yeah, I don't know. It's always kind of wild to me when like games start off at something just like so small like that, and they grow into something that has been pretty universal in its critical acclaim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Celeste's been really well received. I don't want to like spoil. I'm not going to spoil the ending for anyone, especially Emma. But I like teared. I got a little emotional like reading the synopsis on Wikipedia on the subway. So mm-hmm. That was an embarrassing moment for me today.
Yeah. So I guess like in chapter 4. Yes. Just to give you a little bit of sense of like what the game is about. So at the end of chapter 4, you meet up with Theo and you get on this gondola going up because there appears to be no other way to keep ascending. And of course, because you're on a gondola and on a mountain, it gets stuck in the middle. and Madeline starts having a bit of like a panic attack. That Theo then instructs her like one of the strategies for getting through a panic attack is like you imagine the feather, and your breath is what's keeping it floating. So you have to like breathe in and out with the feather to keep it floating, and it makes you do that by like pressing the A button. And as you do that, like all the sort of oppressive noise that's happening and the thorns around you all sort of like fade away until there's just like the feather there again. And I thought I was like actually like I like was breathing with the feather, and you could actually sort of feel the panic of it. They also speak in a kind of gibberish, but the tone goes up and down based on what they're feeling. And when Madeline gets really panicked, it's just like this like the really tight voice, like at the very top of your throat, sort of gibberish. Yeah, it was very affecting.
Do you find that the sort of calming mechanisms that she uses in the game are even more effective, given the sort of stressful gameplay elements that you've just gone through?
Yeah, you do that. You gotta breathe through it. Yeah.
Like, do you think they're teaching you that so that you can use it as
Probably.
Your rage grows?
Probably. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll have to touch base on a side quest once you finish the game, because I'm excited to talk about sort of the ending and the like journey of mental health that the game depicts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really like it so far, so I'm looking forward to it. I've been wanting to go back to it, but I've needed to get recording stuff for the playlist that's coming up, so I've mostly been marathoning Twowie. Twowie. But hopefully I'll be able to go back to it soon once I get a little bit more footage. I'll be able to get back to it.
Well, Emma, start imagining that feather, because we've got a difficult challenge ahead of us.
Oh boy.
Mashing up The Sims and Celeste.
Oh boy. Geez Louises.
I have some thoughts.
Okay, good, because I've got none.
Okay, so The Sims, at its heart, before we add in the 100 baby challenge or like any like bizarro interpersonal stuff that you've projected onto your Sims, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is predominantly about taking care of your Sims as this benevolent god, theoretically, this volent god of some kind, and making sure their needs are met and that they can take care of their own needs.
Mm-hmm.
Which also seems to be something that is a theme, to some extent, in Celeste.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, the gameplay could not be more different, but this theme of being able to take care of yourself and self-actualization is there in both.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's mostly in both games, maybe more in The Sims than in Celeste, gets obscured by the actual gameplay.
Yes.
So I think that that's an important element in our mashup. As is gibberish language. I think that's a nice little crossover.
Yeah. Okay. So
I need to work out the actual...
self-actualization through gibberish.
No. You're useless.
Thanks. I try real hard. Yeah, it's just not.
Okay. It's a platform where the platforms represent like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Okay, so it's a pyramid.
Well, yes, but we'll get more creative with it. You know?
Okay.
Maybe there are some times where and basically to ascend this hierarchy, you not only need to clear platforming levels that represent the challenges of like getting food and shelter and education, and I don't actually remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs very well off the top of my head because like it's BS, right? But like whatever.
So it's like food, shelter. There's like 5, right?
I'll look it up right now, but help me continue to craft this game.
Well, I think that works pretty well. You have 5 levels that are each themed around one of the needs, starting from the bottom. Starting from the bottom to the top.
That came out of nowhere.
It just came into my head, and I continued to speak.
Great. So at the bottom, to review for those of you who have not recently taken, I don't know, a psychology class, I guess. I don't know if this is like taught still.
We talked about it in communications too.
Cool. So for those of you who are not in college taking humanities classes, at the bottom of the hierarchy is physiological needs, which is like food and drink and let's see what else. Here it's homeostasis, food, water, sleep, and shelter. Then next is safety needs, which is personal security, financial security, health and well-being, and like safety against accidents. Then next is social belonging, so friendships, intimacy, and family. Then there's esteem, and then there's self-actualization.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he then explored, on top of this, self-transcendence. Which could be a nice little bonus level.
Sure, you just float.
So I think that you could have, like, a nice kind of a platformer based on that.
Yeah.
Where maybe at points, as the story progresses between games, like, not only are you doing this kind of, like, abstract platformer, but you then have to kind of, like, make your character take care of themselves in the real world, too.
Yeah.
It's a game that takes place, like, if you were to take a game and put it inside of a Sim's brain, it's the Sim battling to feed themselves instead of crying on the floor because they're too tired.
And because you die so much, that's why the Sims have so much trouble taking care of themselves, right?
Exactly. So it's a game modeled on this hierarchy of needs wherein you're inside this brain and you are battling with it. And sometimes perhaps if we want to get, if we really want to bring on our psychology consultants and do this right, maybe our Sim, like maybe we play as in different people's brains sort of throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on that person and their current mental state and any mental illness or whatever, learning disability, etc., that they might have, that affects the gameplay.
So, like Psychonauts.
Not like Psychonauts.
Kind of like Psychonauts.
Yeah, but more like, I don't know, enlightened.
What? Psychonauts is plenty enlightened.
I know. I don't mean that exactly. I just mean maybe
it illustrates several mental states.
Okay. So maybe you're in the same person's brain the whole time, but because they have, and I don't mean to be flippant about this, but they have anxiety or they have depression or they have some kind of mental illness that, of course, we would work on with mental health professionals to portray respectfully and accurately. Sometimes you'll, like, hit a level in the needs that you, like, can't surmount.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole, like, spoons metaphor, right? Have you seen that before?
No, I have not seen the spoons metaphor.
Okay, so it's like a thing with, like, depression or mental illness where it's like, okay, like, you only have a certain number of spoons, and you have to allocate them to different... I don't know why it's spoons, but we'll move past that. You have to allocate them to different tasks. Like, you only have 5 a day, and, like, getting out of bed is a spoon, and, like, making a meal is a spoon, and going to work is, like, 3 spoons, right?
Uh-huh. Why are they spoons?
Yeah, I don't really know. I won't pretend to know why. But... So it's like sometimes you'll hit a wall in your platforming and it's like you can't get through and you have to die and you fall back down a level because like you just can't get there.
Like Elude.
Don't know that one.
That's what happens in Elude.
Okay,
I mean, it's a game that's explicitly about like depression, so.
Well, it's still rough around the edges, but I think this would be a cool game.
Yeah, I think it's got some heft to it. Might need a little bit longer to work out the kinks than a 4-day game jam, but
At the very least, it would make a great Sims expansion pack.
Sure.
Go
What is the
inside
inside of the mother's head that's doing the 100 baby challenge?
But it's not one mother that has 100 babies. I want to be clear.
Okay.
You eventually pass the role of the matriarch on to the daughter that you think will best be able to attract multiple mates.
Oh my god. This is so creepy in so many ways, and I'm just gonna push it from my mind. Just gonna
They're not real.
shove it out there. Shove it out of my head.
They're not real.
I know they're not real. Still, though. Still.
Well, folks, on that dark and disturbing note, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Talk This. It's been wonderful.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
Literally, you never know what's going to happen to you. Someone might be jumping around in your head, or you might find yourself tempted to force a virtual woman to bear
Please don't do that.
a gigantic brood.
Please don't do that. Thanks.
So we've had a wonderful time this week. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to pick our games for 2 weeks from now for our next story progression full episode. But in the meantime, while Emma sort of gets our hat up, our virtual hat up, I want to encourage you to follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talk This Podcast. And we're on YouTube at Talk This Sisters. Check out the blog and other content on our website at www.talkthispodcast.com. And if you like the show, check us out on podcasting platforms. Wow, I really lost my train of thought in the middle. I was about to go back to Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. But check us out on the podcasting platform of your choice. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Spotify, and many, many more that you may not have heard of. So check us out there. While you're there, subscribe. That might have been what I just said. Y'all, I am sick and I am tired and...
Just do the things. Go back to last episode and listen. Do what Madelyn tells you to.
Rate and review. That's what I was gonna say. And I'll say it for what's probably the 5th time now. Subscribe!
Subscribe!
And now it's time to pick our next batch of games.
Alright, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Our old game is Dynasty Warriors.
Nice.
And our new game is Far Cry 5.
Alright, Crying Warriors. 6.
Dynasty Far.
It's going to be a great episode in 2 weeks. Tune in next week for another one of our side quests, where we'll talk what we've been playing, the weather, the traffic, the question of the fortnight, and our off-topic corner. You won't want to miss it. So, Emma, do you want to give the good people a great sign-off?
This week, just remember to breathe.